Welcome everyone to our second Sovereign Cloud Summit in Barcelona, sunny Barcelona for those who have come from more northern climates. It's very nice to see the sunshine. My name is Guy Bartram. I'm the Director of Product Marketing for our VMware Cloud providers. So I'd like to formally welcome you to our Sovereign Cloud Summit. We've got a packed agenda today. We do have some breaks. We listened to the feedback last time, and we have quite a few breaks. We will also have some drinks and nibbles at the end. I'm going to be handing over for each session, so you'll hear me a few times, and then I'll be running a panel as well later on. But I really want to start by introducing Rajeev to you all and letting Rajeev kick off our second Sovereign Cloud Summit. Thank you.
Good afternoon. All right, come on. I see so much energy here. It's full. It's awesome. Hey, my name is Rajeev Bhardwaj, and I lead our products in our VMware Cloud Service Provider division. Really excited to be here to talk about our strategy around sovereign clouds. This forum is unique because it gives us a platform to bring policymakers, service providers, customers, infrastructure partners, and ISVs all together to talk about business issues that we have, especially as we see this landscape of sovereign clouds evolve. Really important forum. Obviously, we did a good job last year because that's why we have full attendance here. So we want to continue this. This is going to be a very important forum for us as we go forward. Like Guy said, last year was the inaugural Sovereign Cloud Summit. And our focus was around regulations and policies. That was the focus last year. How many of you were here last year? Yeah. Now, a lot has happened since we met last. What we are seeing is in the marketplace for sovereign clouds, it's no longer nice to have sovereign clouds. We are seeing sovereign cloud discussions about having must-have. We are seeing it across all industries, healthcare, we're seeing it across financial, we're seeing it across public sector entities, and of course, right, utilities. So we're seeing across the board, sovereign cloud now has become a must-have requirement for a lot of our end customers. So we will change the agenda this time on the summit. Our focus is going to be, of course, we'll talk about regulations. We'll talk about what the latest laws and regulations are coming, but more important this time, we'll talk about two unique things. One is, first and foremost, our discussion will be around ecosystem and innovation. And also, we'll talk about how do we bring real-world practical deployment experiences on sovereign clouds that are happening today. So those would be the focus for us in this summit. And like we said, the focus would be, we'll start out the day with giving an overview of the market, what's happening on the legal front, what's happening on the regulation front. Then we'll quickly dive into real-world deployment examples from some of our service providers. And then finally, we'll go into what I call as ecosystem and innovations, because there's always a question that comes up when we have discussions with our customers about sovereign cloud. It's great, sovereign clouds can help with regulations, it can help with jurisdiction control, but what about innovation? What we don't want to do is build a cloud that doesn't have innovation. So we'll focus a lot more today on what can the ecosystem bring in terms of ISV services, especially as we start looking at AI, ML. We're starting seeing more and more our customers asking for AI, ML. So how do we bring all this innovation to sovereign cloud? So what we want to do is bring the best of both. On one hand, we have sovereignty. On the other hand, we have innovations. And of course, like Guy said, we'll have breaks today in between those sessions. So let's get right into it. So we kind of shared this perspective last year when we met. Nothing really has changed. The fundamental drivers for sovereign clouds are still the same. It's about jurisdiction control, it's about data residency, it's about security, it's about privacy. That continues to be the primary driver for sovereign clouds. And then, second thing what we are seeing is every country, every local region is coming up with its new regulations. If you look at EU, the EU Data Act. Especially now we see artificial intelligence and machine learning coming up. So now we are seeing the EU AI Act. So all those are new regulations that create challenges for our customers and of course our service providers. And then with the emergence of AI ML, new models are being created. And when we look at these new models, large language models, they are focused on public sector companies, they're focused on regulated entities. This data, by definition, is private. This data has to be locally secured. It can't leave the local region. So with this AI ML, new types of regulations are coming in. So how do we make sure, our sovereign customers have the benefit of realizing the benefits of AI, but making sure within the confines, within the rules and regulations of sovereign clouds. Now, when we look at sovereign clouds, there is no standard in the sovereign cloud. So what the industry has done, all the stakeholders have done is come up with a framework of defining the requirements of sovereign clouds. And what we are seeing is emergence of generally agreed principles or guidelines of what a sovereign cloud could be. And these are 8 or so principles, and let's go into each one of them into a little bit more detail what they mean. First and foremost is about ownership of a sovereign cloud. And this is, again, making sure the sovereign cloud, when it's operating in a given country, the ownership is within a sovereign nation. And a clear example of what you see, why this is important, clear example, let me highlight an example. If you look in the United States, TikTok is a social media application, very popular, collects a lot of data, but it's owned by a separate nation. It's owned outside the US. And there's a lot of questions about that social media application, a cloud-based application, now having a non-sovereign owner. And 34 out of 50 states in the United States have banned the use of that app. If you are a public sector employee working in those governments, you cannot use that application. So these are like complex geopolitical topics having an impact on sovereign clouds, and this is about ownership as an example. Similarly, jurisdiction control. Again, making sure if I'm operating in a sovereign nation, external entities should not have jurisdiction control on the data. Example here being the US Cloud Act. US Cloud Act gives the US government jurisdiction control on the data, regardless of where the data resides, if that data is owned and operated and managed by a US-owned company. That creates a lot of challenges for customers. Third is residency. It's all about data residency is where does the data reside? And when we talk about data, there are multiple levels of data. It is, of course, the data owned by the customer. It's also metadata. It's the log files. It's the support. All that data is classified as data. So making sure that data resides within the sovereign nation. A lot of sovereign clouds are designed also for mission-critical infrastructure. And when you have mission-critical infrastructure, we need to make sure the disaster recovery site also complies with sovereign regulations and sovereign requirements. Last thing you want to do is sovereign cloud in one nation, your DR is in the other nation, a disaster happens, and you can't meet the regulatory requirements. So data residency, again, becomes very important in terms of DR and, of course, right, what data is exposed. It has to be operated, the data has to be operated by local sovereign citizens. This is, again, becoming an important point, making sure the citizens are vetted by the national government. And also, outsourcing is a discussion that started coming up in the discussions with customers, is making sure, when clouds are being managed locally in a sovereign nation, some of the work doesn't get outsourced, right? Because that defies the logic of sovereign operations. The next one is about availability of cloud services. This is something that we've started seeing more and more now in conversations with our customers and service providers. If you look at the public cloud providers in the market today, and unnamed, right? Large public cloud provider has 20,000 services, SKUs, in the market today. these 20,000 SKUs are all structured in a manner because all of them use a local control plane. This local control plane is a SaaS-based service. It resides in the United States. All the data now is managed through United States. So this kind of creates challenges for if you have to deliver sovereign services. So what is happening is they're picking a select set of services. Out of those 20,000 services, they pick a select set of services, refactor those services with a local control plane. That is a lot of work. And that creates a challenge because now customers are looking at the entire portfolio, but what's available is a small subset of services. And that's creating a lot of discussion right now in sovereign community is, look, what we like the old services, but what's available is a small set of services. Okay? Because you have to build a local control plane. That's a lot of work and a lot of investment. Because it's a lot of investment, what ends up happening is it creates price premium. So a lot of sovereign services today available by the public cloud providers today are refactored. And like I said, refactoring costs a lot of money. And that's why if you are buying sovereign services, you will see there's a price premium for sovereign services in the market. So this is another aspect of what we are seeing. So for a cloud to be sovereign, there should be no price premium because it should be naturally a right architecture from day one versus retrofitting these applications. The other principle is no lock-in. Of course, right, you should be able to move the data freely. And this is a topic that's coming up more and more in discussions is, the egress fees, right? So you can move the data in easily, but to move the data out, there is a lot of charge. There are very, high charges for egress fees. And that is a big, big challenge for our customers. Other one is these flexible terms, right? These are a lot of these hyperscalers or public cloud providers have very different commercial models. They make you buy a lot of stuff, and that creates a challenge because now you're locked in because you're buying a whole portfolio of services. It creates a lock-in fee for the customers. And then, of course, the other big one is the refactoring. When you move from native cloud, when you move from one cloud to the other cloud, there's a big charge because you're embedded using those services. Every cloud hyperscaler has their own cloud services. They have their own data services. They have their own format. So as a customer, when they have to move from one cloud to the other cloud, there's a lot of refactoring cost. And that is a big challenge that our customers are facing. So that becomes another guiding principle is to give customers the flexibility that there is no lock-in and they have flexibility to move in from any cloud without incurring extra charges in terms of egress fees or refactoring. And the last one is around innovation, right? We can build sovereign clouds with those 7 principles, but if there's no innovative services on those sovereign clouds, then it's like a walled garden. Customers are looking for innovation. Customers are trying to drive business outcomes. So as a guiding principle, we need to ensure that sovereign clouds not only deliver on sovereignty, but also deliver on innovation. And this is where we have to bring the power of the ecosystem, an open ecosystem where the customers have the flexibility to bring the best-in-class services. The services could be on data protection. The services could be on the security. Services could be on AI, ML. And of course, the services could be on database services like MongoDB or SQL Server. So giving the customers the flexibility to pick and choose the right ecosystem services, the best in class, is how the sovereign clouds have to deliver innovation. So those are the 8 principles that are commonly agreed upon, are serving as guidelines of what a sovereign cloud ought to be delivering. Now, we have in Europe now close to 28 sovereign cloud service providers here. And let's raise your hands, how many of you are sovereign cloud providers here? Yeah. So my message is, service providers are here. The time is now, right? Sovereign clouds are no longer about nice to have. Sovereign clouds are becoming more and more must have. and the time to act on sovereign clouds is now. So with that, these are the resources for you. With that, let me hand it back to Guy. And what we'll do is go into a lot more depth in these discussions. We'll talk about what's happening on the market side, what's happening on the regulatory side. We'll talk to our service providers who are practicing, delivering sovereign clouds. And of course, we'll have a discussion on ecosystem and AI, ML, and all those innovations, right? So with that, Guy.
Thanks, Rajeev.
Thank you.
Okay, interesting stuff. So we're moving swiftly on. I see a few of you taking photos of the slides. Just contact us afterwards. We'll share the VMware slides with you, no problem. Also, all of these sessions are being recorded, so they will be available on the web, hopefully next week if I can get time to do it. But in the meantime, there's some great resources there. You know, our LinkedIn group, we've got a lot of traffic on there. We've obviously got our solution web pages as well, so please look those up. I'll now leave you with Laurent.